My daughter-in-law said we were going on a trip together to bond, but that was the day I discovered she wanted to put me in a mental institution and take everything I had built in my life. My name is Sandra Miller. I'm 60 years old, and I'm sitting in the living room of my apartment in Santa Monica, California, telling a story that still makes me shiver every time I think about it. A story about how I almost lost everything because I trusted the wrong people, and how I discovered there was a stronger woman inside me than I ever imagined. I've always been resilient, not easily defeated by hardship. After losing my husband, Daniel, in a car accident 15 years ago, I raised our son Ryan alone. I worked as a secretary at a law firm in Los Angeles for over 25 years. My life changed when my Aunt Margaret, who had no children, left me a large inheritance. It allowed me to buy a 3-bedroom apartment in Santa Monica, where I still live today. I combined that inheritance with years of savings, enough to give my son a stable life and still keep some money for rainy days. When Ryan married Emily 8 years ago, I cried tears of joy. My son deserved true love, and Emily seemed perfect then, young, polite, soft-spoken, and seemingly devoted. Not long after, my granddaughter Lily was born. She's 8 now, and the light of my life. Since the day she came into the world, I've been the kind of grandmother everyone in the neighborhood knows, picking her up from school, cooking, teaching her to paint, telling bedtime stories. After retiring, I spent most of my time caring for her, and it became my greatest joy. Ryan and Emily both work in finance and often come home late. I loved helping, so I happily cared for Lily almost every day. Every morning, when I woke up knowing she'd be coming over, my heart felt full. I loved baking with her, watching cartoons, or helping her with homework at the kitchen table. But in the past few months, I started noticing something had changed. Emily had grown distant, colder, sharper, sometimes saying things that cut deep. She began talking about my mental health, saying I was forgetful, that I should get regular checkups, that a woman in her 60s needs medical supervision. At first, I thought it was just concern from a thoughtful daughter-in-law. Emily had always been pleasant, well-mannered, and respectful, but her comments started coming more often, more direct, and more hurtful. She said I kept repeating the same stories, that I forgot to turn off the stove, that I called the wrong neighbor by name. I was stunned, because I didn't remember doing any of those things. When I tried to explain that I was perfectly healthy and clear-minded, he just looked at me with pity and said, "Mom, you're getting older. There's nothing shameful about needing help." Those words pierced my heart, but I stayed silent to avoid conflict. Things got worse when Emily started making strange suggestions. She said I shouldn't watch Lily by myself anymore, that it was too much responsibility for someone in my condition. She suggested hiring a daytime caregiver to help out and keep me company. I protested fiercely, saying I was perfectly capable of taking care of myself. Emily showed up at my apartment with a woman who introduced herself as Dr. Susan, a geriatric specialist. Emily said she had booked a routine wellness checkup for me, just to make sure everything was fine. The appointment was strange. The doctor asked detailed questions about my memory, decision-making, finances, and living situation. She asked if I felt safe living alone, if I ever felt confused about where I was, or if I had trouble managing my money. Emily sat beside me, the whole time, constantly interrupting, adding examples that stunned me, saying I'd forgotten to turn off the stove, mixed up names, or couldn't recall whether I'd gone grocery shopping. I sat there in silence, feeling more interrogated than examined. When it ended, the doctor said I should consider having regular assistance, because someone your age needs support to maintain quality of life. Emily walked the doctor out with a look of fake concern, then turned to me with a soft but loaded tone. "Don't worry, Mom. I'll find someone really good to take care of you." I just want you to be safe." That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed every word, every look between them, and my instincts screamed that something was terribly wrong. Maybe they were planning something to take everything I had worked for my entire life. Something deep inside me knew that checkup hadn't been normal, that behind Emily's sudden concern for my mental health was something truly frightening. In the weeks that followed, Emily kept emphasizing my fragility. She told Ryan that my condition was getting worse quickly and that they needed to make a decision about taking care of me before it was too late. She began openly talking about putting me in a luxury nursing home in California, a place where professionally trained staff provide care 24/7. It sounded reasonable, but the way she said it sent chills down my spine. I started to feel like I was losing my mind. Was I really going insane without realizing it? Or were they right, and I was just being stubborn by insisting I was fine? I became obsessed, monitoring every action and every word, terrified I might actually notice signs of memory loss. Then Emily made a proposal that would change my life forever and understand each other better. She said she wanted to truly understand my fears and my needs, and that away from the noise of the city, two women in the same family could finally connect. I have to admit, I was touched. I had always hoped to have a close, genuine relationship with my daughter-in-law. The trip sounded like the perfect opportunity. Emily talked about a peaceful spa in Oregon, where we could relax, talk, and plan for my future. I agreed immediately, filled with hope. Finally, I had the chance to show that I was still healthy, clear-minded, and deserving of respect. I packed a small suitcase with a few comfortable outfits for 2 days, my blood pressure medication, my ID, and my debit card. On the morning of our departure, Emily arrived right on time, driving her silver SUV, cheerful and unusually gentle, completely unlike her usual self. She said we would stop for lunch on the way, and that this would be a fun and relaxing trip. I got into the car feeling excited and trusting. I had no idea I was stepping into the vehicle that would change my life forever. That trip wasn't meant to strengthen our bond. It was meant to cut me off from everything I had built through a lifetime of hard work and sacrifice. During the first few miles, Emily seemed oddly enthusiastic. She talked about how I should have a more peaceful life, that there's no shame in accepting help, and that changes can bring peace to the soul. I listened half-heartedly, staring out the window, thinking about the deep conversations I believed we'd soon have to heal our relationship. But there was something in her tone, the way she kept repeating words like acceptance and change, that made my heart uneasy. I began to feel like she was preparing me mentally for something terrible I couldn't yet understand, but my instincts warned me to fear. As the car rolled down the long highway, my mind drifted back to the first years after retirement. I had so many plans, taking art classes, joining yoga sessions, traveling to New York or Florida, places I had dreamed of visiting all my life. But Ryan and Emily said it would be better if I spent my time taking care of Lily, since they were so busy. I agreed because my granddaughter was the greatest joy of my life. The first few months were wonderful. Lily came to my house every morning. I took her to school, picked her up, helped with homework, cooked with her. I felt useful, needed. But gradually, they started relying on me too much. Long weekends when Lily stayed with me because her parents were busy, holidays when they traveled and left her behind, parent-teacher meetings where only I showed up because they had more important things to do. Then I realized my entire life had shrunk down to serving them. When I mentioned wanting to join an art class or a senior group, Emily always had an excuse. Lily needs you more. One time, I'll never forget, it was my close friend Nancy's 65th birthday. I had looked forward to it all week, bought a new dress, and couldn't wait to see my old friends again. That morning, Emily called in a panic, saying she had an emergency meeting that could affect her promotion. She said she only trusted me to watch Lily. So I put away the new dress, stayed home with my granddaughter all day, and my heart ached with disappointment. From that day on, I noticed a cruel pattern. Every time I tried to have a life of my own, a family emergency conveniently appeared, and I was always the one tied down. It seemed they were afraid I'd develop interests outside the family circle. Emily started making sarcastic comments about my friends, suggesting that people my age often had a negative influence on each other. She told me to be careful with selfish friends, saying, "Family is what truly matters," that I already had everything I needed with them. Ryan agreed with everything his wife said, and I began to feel isolated within my own family. My opinions were dismissed as outdated thoughts of someone who didn't understand the modern world. My desires were treated as old lady whims. Gradually, my independence was worn away. In that atmosphere, Emily started planting the first seeds about my supposed need for medical monitoring. She said that people my age should get regular health checkups, especially memory and cognitive tests, to prevent decline before it's too late. It sounded reasonable, so I agreed. I once thought having a daughter-in-law who cared about my health was a blessing. But I was completely wrong, because behind that so-called concern was a calculated scheme. After that strange checkup with Dr. Susan, Emily changed completely. She started treating me like someone on the verge of losing her mind. She constantly repeated the doctor's advice, telling me I needed to accept the limits of my age. She said there was nothing shameful about needing help, that a good family is one brave enough to make hard decisions for everyone's well-being. She praised luxury senior care homes as paradises for the elderly. Gradually, I began doubting myself. Was I really forgetting important things? Were they seeing something I couldn't? That confusion grew each day, and during that time, Emily became even more persistent, speaking openly about sending me to a premium care center where I would live like a queen. Ryan agreed, saying, "We need to think about what's best for everyone, especially for Lily. She shouldn't have to worry about her grandmother so much." It seemed that, in their eyes, I had become a burden they needed to handle gracefully. One afternoon, Emily brought colorful brochures for luxury retirement centers in California. The photos showed bright gardens, smiling seniors, and joyful activities. She eagerly said I'd make new friends, receive great medical care, and never have to worry about housework again. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. I was still healthy, independent, perfectly capable of taking care of myself. Why should I leave my apartment in Santa Monica, the home I'd worked my entire life to buy, to live among strangers? When I voiced my doubts, Emily sighed with fake sympathy and said, "This resistance, Mom. People with memory decline often believe they're fine." That was when I felt truly weak, and she struck at that exact vulnerability. Emily began bringing Lily to visit me less often, saying the child was stressed from seeing her grandmother so confused. When I protested that it wasn't true, she just shook her head and replied coldly, "The fact that you don't see the problem is the clearest symptom of all." Those words cut like a knife. Lily's absence made my home feel hollow and cold. The days grew heavy, stretching endlessly. It felt as though the only light in my life had been taken away. Ryan still visited occasionally, but not like a loving son anymore. They came together as a couple, checking on a patient, not as a son visiting his mother. They stared at me, as if searching for evidence. If I misplaced my glasses, they exchanged knowing looks. If I repeated something, they quietly noted it as a sign of decline. Gradually, I became completely isolated. Friends called less often because Emily always had excuses. Mom's in a sensitive stage. She shouldn't be around too many people. She needs rest. I was living in a gilded cage surrounded by comfort, yet stripped of everything that gave my life meaning. my granddaughter, my freedom, my friends, and my dignity. It was as if they were preparing me mentally so that, when the time came, I'd obediently accept whatever decision they made, too weak and hopeless to resist. And then it happened when Emily appeared with her so-called saving idea. As we drove, I realized our destination didn't look like a resort at all, but more like a facility for those under supervision, where people like me were given special care. When I asked her directly if we were really going to the spa she had mentioned, her voice faltered, sending chills through me. She said it was an even better place, where I would receive excellent care, with a professional team that understands the needs of older adults. Her tone had completely changed. No longer the gentle voice of a daughter-in-law, but the cold tone of someone taking me somewhere against my will. My heart started racing. I asked how long this trip would last. Was it really just for the weekend, as she'd said? Her answer froze me. It depends on how well you adjust to the new place. If you like it, you might stay longer. In that instant, a horrifying realization hit me. This wasn't a weekend getaway between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. This was a plan to erase me from their lives. I asked if Ryan knew exactly where we were going and whether he agreed to this sudden change. Emily answered firmly that he did, that Ryan fully knew and agreed, even saying, "It's what's best for the whole family, especially for Lily." Mentioning Lily filled me with despair. I asked, "What does Lily have to do with any of this? Why would an 8-year-old be affected by where I go for the weekend?" Her answer pierced straight through my heart. Emily said, "Children shouldn't have to carry the emotional burden of living with an older person showing signs of confusion. Lily is being affected. She gets scared when she sees you forget things. It's better for her to have a normal childhood without being haunted by those images." At that moment, the illusion shattered. I realized this trip had nothing to do with health or bonding. It was meant to erase me from their lives forever. I tried to stay calm and said I wanted to grab my purse from the back seat to check my medication and papers. Emily coldly replied that there was no need, that she had already taken care of everything, and that I didn't have to worry about paperwork where we were going. Those words sent real panic through me. Why would I not need my own documents? Why wouldn't she let me touch my own purse? I insisted that I had a headache and needed to check my medicine. Finally, Emily reluctantly handed me the bag, but her eyes stayed fixed on me, like a guard watching a prisoner. When I opened my wallet, I froze. Several important things were gone: my emergency checkbook, my main credit card, even my health insurance card. I asked about it, and she calmly replied, "You probably forgot them at home. That just proves even more that you really need supervision." Right then, my phone rang. It was Ryan. Seeing my son's name on the screen filled me with hope, but immediately, Emily gave me a sharp gesture not to answer. She said he was just checking to make sure we were safe and that she'd call him back later. But the voice faintly coming from the phone didn't sound normal. Ryan kept calling again and again, as if desperately trying to warn me about something serious. I couldn't hear everything clearly. But in the voicemail, I caught fragments. "Mom, don't go anywhere. You need to call me right now. I found something about the papers." At that moment, I knew for certain I was in real danger. Panicking, I begged Emily to stop the car so I could call my son back. A mother always knows when her child is in distress, and I could hear the fear in Ryan's voice. But Emily refused firmly, saying, "There's nothing urgent, and all misunderstandings will be cleared up once we get there." The phone kept ringing nonstop. Emily grew tense, irritated, saying Ryan was overreacting, that I should relax and enjoy the trip. But by then, I didn't believe a single word she said. Each ring felt like an alarm, confirming something terrible was happening. Finally, Emily pulled into a roadside gas station, saying she needed to refuel and use the restroom. As soon as she turned off the engine, Ryan called again, and this time I managed to answer before she came back. My son's voice came through the phone, trembling and desperate, like a man screaming in panic. "Mom, get out of the car right now. Emily's taking you somewhere horrible. You're in real danger, run away now." Ryan's voice shook with tears. He said he had just found a folder hidden in Emily's desk drawer containing fake documents claiming I was mentally ill and paperwork for involuntary commitment to a psychiatric facility in Oregon. She had forged medical records saying I had severe dementia, that I could no longer care for myself, and that I might be a danger to others. Ryan said he discovered everything that very morning while looking for an important file and accidentally opened her private drawer. Inside were not only the fake records but also falsified legal documents granting Emily full control over my assets as my legal guardian. While I was still frozen in shock, Emily realized what was happening. She lunged at me, snatching the phone from my hands, shouting that Ryan was delusional, that I was confused, and that I should trust her because only she knew what was best for me. I could still hear Ryan's frantic voice through the phone, filled with urgency and despair. "Mom, run! Get out of there now! Ask anyone nearby for help. Don't get back in that car. I'm on my way to find you. I've already called the police. Emily committed a real crime. She forged your medical records." Looking at Emily's distorted face, I suddenly understood the entire horrifying plan. All the talk about my mental state, the appointment with Dr. Susan, the repeated claims that I couldn't live alone, it was all part of an elaborate scheme to steal my assets by locking me away in a mental institution. Emily tried to stay calm, saying that Ryan was lying, that he didn't understand, and that I should trust her and continue the trip because everything has been perfectly arranged for your happiness. But her eyes had changed, filled with panic and emptiness, like someone watching a lifelong plan collapse in just a few minutes. My hands trembled as I forced my voice to sound steady. I told her I needed to use the restroom because I felt dizzy and nauseous. Emily hesitated but couldn't refuse such a reason. She said she would go with me to make sure I was safe. I spoke as firmly as I could. I need privacy. Being followed into the restroom is humiliating. I'll only be a few minutes. Finally, she reluctantly agreed, reminding me to hurry up because we're running late. I stepped into the restroom, my hands shaking, heart pounding like a drum. In my head, one horrifying truth echoed. My daughter-in-law, the woman I once trusted, had planned to lock me in a mental institution to steal my apartment and everything I owned. Through the small window, I saw Emily standing by the car, pacing nervously and making phone calls, probably warning someone that Ryan had discovered her secret. This was my only chance. Behind the restroom was an exit leading to a small employee parking lot. I took a deep breath, gathered every ounce of courage I had left, and in one life-changing decision, I ran. For the first time in my life, at 60 years old, I ran away from my own family. But at that same moment, I was running toward freedom, dignity, and the right to live my own life. Across the street was a small shopping center. I dashed across, barely noticing the traffic, and rushed into a little diner where a few people were having lunch. I asked to use the phone and immediately called Ryan. He picked up right away, still breathing hard in panic. He said he was driving as fast as he could to find me, that he'd be there in less than an hour, and told me to hide well because Emily had surely realized I'd escaped. I quickly told him where I was. The diner's owner, a kind woman, around 60 with silver hair and gentle eyes, was named Martha. She saw the fear on my face and immediately offered help. She said she had a daughter about my age, so she understood how easily people can take advantage of older adults. She brought me a hot cup of coffee, led me to a quiet booth in the back, and let me use her phone to make a few more important calls. I called Karen, my longtime friend and neighbor. I told her everything and asked her to keep an eye on my apartment. Karen was horrified by Emily's scheme. She said she had always been suspicious of my daughter-in-law, who seemed unusually interested in my assets and savings. Karen also mentioned that she had seen Emily a few times in the building lobby, talking to strangers and pointing toward my apartment window. After that, I called my attorney, Mr. Green, who had worked with me for many years. When he heard my story, he was furious and said this was a serious crime. I had to report it to the police immediately. He explained that falsifying medical records to force someone into institutionalization was both unlawful imprisonment and financial fraud, punishable by years in prison. Mr. Green reassured me, "You did the right thing by running, Sandra. From now on, we'll make sure she faces justice." Those were the longest 40 minutes of my life as I sat in that diner, waiting for Ryan to arrive. Mrs. Martha, the diner owner, stayed by my side, gently comforting me and sharing similar stories she had witnessed. She said, sadly, that family members exploiting elderly relatives for money happened far too often. She told me I wasn't the first. She once knew an old man whose own son tried to lock him in a nursing home to steal his pension, and a woman who was tricked by her daughter-in-law into signing over her house. When Ryan finally arrived, his face was flushed, his body trembling in shock. He hugged me tightly, crying and apologizing, saying he never imagined Emily could be so cruel and that he had only found out by accident when he opened the drawer she always kept locked. Ryan told me something that made my blood run cold. Emily hadn't just forged my medical records. She had also faked my signature on legal documents, even fabricated a neighbor's testimony, claiming that I was a danger to myself and others. He showed me photocopies of the documents, a full file complete with fake dates, fabricated incidents, everything designed to prove I was insane. It turned out she had secretly planned it for at least 6 months, even visiting the facility to inspect the rooms, talk to staff, take photos, estimate costs, and schedule a so-called adaptation period. I was stunned. Everything had been arranged so meticulously, as if I were nothing more than an object to be discarded. Ryan said that the night before, when he confronted Emily, she first denied everything, claiming it was only a precaution in case I truly needed medical care. But when he threatened to call the police, Emily panicked and admitted part of the plan. I also learned that what she wanted wasn't just my pension. It was everything I had ever owned. My inheritance from Aunt Margaret, my apartment in Santa Monica, and every dollar I had saved over a lifetime. Her plan was that if I were declared mentally incompetent, Ryan would become the legal heir, and she would control it all. Right there, in Mrs. Martha's diner, Ryan called another attorney he knew and explained the entire situation. The lawyer said we had to go to the police station immediately to file a criminal report as soon as possible to protect my rights and make sure Emily faced legal consequences. On the way to the station, Ryan told me he had been suspicious for months. Emily always stopped him from visiting me alone, using excuses like protecting Mom, when in truth, she was controlling every conversation. He had also noticed that she knew too much about my finances, my expenses, my transfers, things she could only know if she had been secretly tracking me. At the police station, the chief was shocked by the amount of evidence Ryan brought. He said scams targeting seniors were on the rise, but he had rarely seen one so calculated and cruel. According to him, Emily had committed multiple crimes and could face serious prison time. He explained the next steps. I needed a medical evaluation to prove I was fully competent and to invalidate the fake records. I also needed witnesses to confirm that I had been healthy and clear-minded recently. That same day, Karen, my neighbor, came to the station to testify. She spoke about our normal conversations, saying I was always independent and sharp, and that Emily had deliberately isolated me from friends. Karen's statement was crucial to proving I had been manipulated. Mr. Green, my attorney, also came to testify that I had always been professional and sharp-minded, managing complex tasks for years, something impossible if I had been mentally impaired. Meanwhile, the police went to the gas station, where everything happened, to arrest Emily, but she was gone. She had abandoned the car and fled, likely realizing her plan had collapsed, and she'd be arrested if she stayed. Ryan broke down completely, unable to believe that the woman he loved was a calculated fraud who had nearly destroyed our family. He said he would never be able to trust anyone the same way again, and felt guilty for not recognizing the warning signs sooner. That night, I returned to my apartment in Santa Monica with Ryan and Karen. When I stepped inside, I felt a peace deeper than I'd ever known. I sat on my bed, looked around my familiar room, reclaimed not only my freedom, but also my right to live my own life. I knew then that a new chapter had begun. Emily had shown me how vulnerable I could be living alone, and how easily malicious people could exploit the trust of an older woman. I understood I had to rebuild my life, but this time with caution and strength. Most importantly, I discovered a power within myself I'd never known before. The courage to defend my rights, the strength to face those who wished me harm, and the wisdom to escape a trap that could have destroyed my life. At 60 years old, I learned that it's never too late to say no, never too late to stand up, and never too late to start over, even when the people you trusted most have betrayed you. 3 months have passed since that terrifying day on the highway. 3 months that completely changed how I see family, trust, and myself. Now, as I sit in my living room, I feel like a completely different woman from the naive one who once believed it was just a bonding trip between a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. The early days were difficult. I couldn't sleep, startled by every small noise, checking the locks over and over each night. Being betrayed by my own family had shattered my trust in everything. Attorney Mr. Green introduced me to a psychologist who specializes in older adults, Dr. Regina, who helped me immensely to overcome the trauma. Ryan also went through a terrible time. His marriage completely collapsed once the truth came out. Not only had Emily forged documents to have me institutionalized, but she had also taken out loans and credit cards under his name, planning to use my assets to pay them off once she gained legal guardianship. Ryan realized that the woman he thought he loved had never truly existed. The most painful part was Lily, my granddaughter. She was confused because her mother had suddenly disappeared and couldn't understand why Mom went away and never came back. Ryan had to gently explain that her mother had done something wrong and needed to live away from the family for a while. Lily stayed with me for a few days while Ryan tried to put his life back together. During those days, I discovered something that made me both furious and strangely relieved. Emily had poisoned Lily's mind, telling her that Grandma forgets things, warning her not to tell Grandma things that might upset her. She even told Lily to observe and report my behavior to see if I was confused, repeating stories, or acting strange. I was heartbroken to realize my little granddaughter had been turned into a tool for building a fake case against me. But thankfully, Lily was a smart child. She told me, "Mom lied, because I've never seen you forget anything." Hearing those innocent words, I broke down in tears, part pain, part gratitude. After being exposed, Emily disappeared completely. Ryan tried many times to reach her, especially for Lily's sake, but no one knew where she went. She changed her number, quit her job, and vanished as if she had never existed. Attorney Mr. Green gave us legal advice, but Ryan decided not to press charges. He just wanted to cut all ties with her. I didn't want revenge either. I just wanted peace. Maybe the greatest justice was simply to keep living, stronger than before. Since then, Ryan and I have become closer than ever. He felt guilty for bringing that woman into our family, so he visited me every day. We talked a lot. He asked me about raising Lily and about healing from betrayal. Ryan sold his old house and moved into a small apartment near mine. He said it was to take care of me, but I knew he needed me too, to find peace again. We've been slowly reclaiming the years that Emily's lies had stolen from us. Lily has also begun to adjust. She's happier now. No longer made to feel guilty for loving Grandma. These days, she runs freely into my home, laughing, cooking with me like the darkness of the past never existed. I continue therapy with Dr. Regina twice a week. She's helped me realize that none of this was my fault, that I was the victim of manipulation. She taught me techniques to manage anxiety and, most importantly, how to trust myself again. I've learned that kindness doesn't mean naivety. I can still be compassionate, but I must set boundaries and listen to my instincts when something feels wrong. Dr. Regina also taught me how to recognize signs of manipulation, being isolated from friends, constantly having your abilities questioned, being controlled under the guise of care, being used by others to justify oppressive behavior. Those are lessons everyone my age should know. I've reconnected with old friends. Karen has become my closest companion. We share coffee and long talks every afternoon. She told me that my story made her more cautious, even with her own family. I started doing things I once put aside, enrolling in an oil painting class, joining the seniors club at church, and living my own life again, without waiting for anyone's approval. What makes me happiest is that Lily is proud of me. She tells her friends, "My grandma is so brave she got out of a dangerous situation." Every time I hear her say that, I know I didn't just reclaim my life. I also taught my granddaughter the most important lesson of all, that kindness isn't weakness, and silence is never the answer when facing injustice. To Lily, I've become a hero, a strong woman who refused to be deceived. And as for Ryan, he now sees me differently too. He no longer treats me like a fragile mother to protect, but respects me as an independent, resilient woman. He often asks for my advice on important decisions and values, my life experience, and judgment. After Emily vanished, we discovered she had left behind enormous debts, credit cards in Ryan's name, loans he never knew about, and piles of unpaid bills. Ryan had to use his own savings to pay them off and clear his financial reputation. Watching my son struggle with the aftermath of what that woman caused broke my heart, so I helped him with part of my savings so he could start over with dignity and peace of mind. In the months that followed, we uncovered even more of Emily's lies. She never had the job she claimed to have. She often made up excuses to leave the house and lied about where she went. Ryan realized he had been living with a stranger for years. Even Dr. Susan, the woman who had examined me, disappeared without a trace. When Ryan tried to visit the clinic, he discovered it had been closed down, and no one knew where she had gone. It was clear that the two of them had been working together. Ryan also found in Emily's belongings detailed notes about my habits, spending, and daily routines. She had studied our entire family, preparing every step of her plan to take over. There were even drafts of fake letters she intended to send me after I was institutionalized, written in a kind and caring tone, pretending that I was doing better, thanks to her thoughtful arrangements. The cold calculation of that woman both horrified and unsettled me. She had started planning this long ago. Emily hadn't married Ryan out of love. She chose him because she knew he had a widowed mother with assets. The entire marriage had been a performance designed to get close to me and my money. During therapy sessions, Dr. Regina helped me come to terms with that painful truth. It wasn't just about money or the apartment. It was about the years of genuine affection I had given to someone who saw me only as prey. But I learned not to blame myself. Emily was a skilled manipulator, someone who knew exactly how to gain trust and exploit emotions. I was a victim, not a participant in my own humiliation. Now, at 60 years old, I can say I'm stronger than ever. That horrific experience taught me endurance, self-protection, and the importance of never surrendering my dignity. Sometimes, I still wonder where Emily is now, whether she's repeating her schemes with someone else, or if she's ever paid for what she did. But then I realize I can't live in the past. What matters is that I escaped her grasp, kept my freedom, and protected what was mine. Ryan is recovering well now. He's met a kind woman at work, and they're taking things slowly and sincerely. Lily adores her, and so do I. This time, we're all more cautious, more mindful, but we still believe in trusting those who deserve it. I just want to leave one message for anyone listening to my story. Trust your instincts. Don't be afraid to ask questions when something doesn't feel right. And most importantly, always keep your independence. Age does not mean weakness. Even though Emily hurt me deeply, every time I look at Lily, I still feel a pang in my heart. A child shouldn't grow up without a mother, no matter how flawed that mother may be. Deep down, I still hold a small hope that someday, Emily will change, seek help, and become the mother Lily deserves. If one day Emily truly repents, takes responsibility, and gets psychological treatment, I would agree to a supervised meeting between her and Lily. Because no matter what, the bond between mother and child is sacred. Life has taught me that sometimes you have to almost lose everything to discover how strong you really are. At 60 years old, I've learned it's never too late to start again. It's never too late to protect yourself. And it's never too late to choose happiness over manipulation. Sandra's story is a work of fiction inspired by real events with names and places changed to protect privacy. But no matter where it happens, what she went through touches a universal fear. When trust is betrayed within one's own family. If it were you, would you stay silent to avoid hurting those you love, or would you speak up to defend your dignity and freedom? Sandra chose courage, and God gave her the strength to rise, heal, and find light again. May each of us also find peace and faith in God, no matter what trials we face. At the end of this video, I invite you to watch two of my favorite stories, tales of faith, forgiveness, and the quiet power of kindness.